Hello and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I am your host, Dr. Harbir Sayan. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join me here to learn and to grow. I'm always so grateful for all the support. As always, I have a big request right off the top. If you get some value from this episode, or if you've gotten value from any episode that you've listened to over the 170 plus episodes that we've released, please do share it. Share the podcast, send a screenshot on Instagram on your stories, or send a link to a friend, or put it on LinkedIn that you learned something from this conversation. I would love for you to do that. I would be super grateful, and it would help us continue to share our message and grow the podcast so we can help our colleagues to be better, help our profession to grow, which is, of course, the big goal of the podcast. And today's guest is certainly going to be helping us in that regard. I have the one and only Conor Heaney from Manchester, UK. He's originally from Ireland. He is the founder of the Optical Success Academy. He's an optometrist and a business owner, and his practice is in this big, beautiful old bank building in Manchester, and he has grown his business to be one of the most successful in the UK. And so we're going to learn a little bit from Conor and how we can build our businesses to be more successful, and some of the important information that he provides in the Optical Success Academy. So Optical Success Academy. I apologize. I said sales, didn't I? Optical. Well, I guess it's about sales though, Conor. Optical Success Academy. Conor, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Harvey. I'm really happy to be here, and happy to be a guest on your podcast. I've been listening to a few episodes recently, and you're doing some really good work. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Conor. I apologize for butchering the name of the company right off the top.
That's okay.
But
it's just a name.
It's just the name. What is a name? I think, but we'll just plant that little seed of sales in everybody's mind now. So, it stays there as we go through the conversation. But Conor, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I've been watching your content as well and learning a bit about what you do and what OSA is about, and it's really exciting. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you've gotten to where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm an optometrist, as you said, and I'm from Ireland. I moved to England to study optometry in Manchester, and I loved it. And when I graduated, I was super passionate about optometry. And my first job, I ended up working for, after I qualified and did my professional qualifying exams, my first job was for Specsavers. I think you have Specsavers in Canada now.
We do, yeah.
And they're obviously a very successful, great company. So that was my first job. And within I'm not going to say weeks, but within a few months of, doing between 20 and 25 eye exams a day, I was, 22 years old, 23 years old. I just thought there must be more to life. I cannot see myself doing this forever. And it was just, I think, the volume and the speed. But the other thing that I kind of really missed was studying, because that was the first time in my life where I didn't have any more exams. I didn't have any more, I wasn't really pushing myself. So quite quickly I realized, okay, I really need to find something. Either I need to kind of get into hospital optometry and really see about exploring that more further, or possibly business. But I was really, I didn't know much about business. I had reservations about it. But I knew I needed to do something. And with a few friends, went and traveled. We had a gap year. We went and worked in Australia for a year as optometrists, and but really just trying to reflect a little bit on where do I want to go with my career, and went to a few kind of personal development seminars and things when I was out there, and got to get a bit more understanding about what business can be about, and was excited about that. So decided to open my own practice. With a friend, opened the first practice in Manchester in 2005. Learned the hard way. Learned very quickly that we didn't really know much about business. Shocker. We studied optometry at university, opened a business, and realized there was, way more things that we didn't know than we did. But really just enjoyed that journey. Then opened the second practice, which is the one I run today, Jones & Co. Styling Opticians. And just loved learning about business and learning about how do we do things differently, and how do we do things as well as they can be done for our patients or our clients. And a big strategy that I've kind of followed is to differentiate. So not just do everything the same old way as everyone else does it. Don't be traditional. Find a way to be different. And I think because of that, I was invited to speak at a few small conferences in the UK to other independents, just showcasing, what I've done, what's worked for me. And that planted a little, I guess, seed in my head that there were a lot of independent practice owners going through that same challenge of figuring out how do we, what do I want my business to be about? How am I going to differentiate? How am I going to be successful? So that was kind of the seed for creating Optical Success Academy, which is an organization. We've over 100 members now, mainly in the UK, but also in North America. Really, where we just showcase what we do and how we do it, as well as creating a community of like-minded practice owners that are, I guess, just developing their business skills and all of the good stuff that comes with the chaos of running an independent practice.
Yeah, and there is a lot of chaos, and you learn the hard way. Well, most of us learn the hard way. I think there's some who happen to have a knack for business, perhaps, but I think the majority of us have to learn the hard way. Well, I appreciate that, the arc of that journey, and you've learned so much, and you have developed so much. You've developed so many skills in this space that you can actually share this insight with others now to help them grow their businesses as well. I wanted to ask you the one question, big question I want to ask you right off the top, which I heard you talk about in your webinar, was the big lie that we've been told, and I would love for you to share with us what that is, and then that'll help kind of lead us into the rest of the conversation, I think.
Cool. Yes. So the dramatic big lie, I think, that we've all been told is that, you learn how to be a great optometrist. You really develop your optometry skills. You go to optometry school and university, and we do that with the thought that that's all you need. So now to be a successful practice owner, as long as you're a great optometrist, you're good. When the reality is, being a great optometrist is such a small piece of the puzzle when it comes to you being successful as a business owner. And I think the smart practice owners, or the lucky ones, kind of realize that, and then they go and find a way to educate themselves about, getting these business skills, from learning how to market to sell, make strategic decisions, how to build a team, how to create a culture, all of those things that we don't learn at all at university. It's about just realizing what knowledge you lack and going and getting it. I think the worst thing that can happen to an optometrist is that they love optometry so much that they kind of bury their head in the sand a little bit, and they stay in that really comfortable zone. And it's really important work. But I think as soon as you become a business owner, you now have other responsibilities that, you need to go and figure out how to do that job well.
Yeah. There's something that you'd said, which really stuck with me, and it kind of flips this whole thing on its head, right? And this is what your journey is, but I think the journey of many of us as optometrists who are business owners, it needs to be this journey, the journey from an optometrist who owns a business to a business owner who happens to be an optometrist. That's your own quote, by the way, just in case you've heard it before. So that flipping that on its head, and that script in our mind, and I think that can be scary for a lot of people. If you think about it, like, we spent all these years in school, and now you're telling me that's only a small part of what I'm supposed to be doing. And if that's now, instead of that being 90% and 10% being business, instead it's flipped, and optometry is 10% or 20% of what I do. How do I learn the other 75, 80, 90% that I'm supposed to learn if I didn't go to school for it? So how do we do that, Conor?
Yeah, so I think you're right in that it is almost a bit of an identity crisis, and I've been through that myself. So I'm now at the point where I no longer see patients.
At all? Okay. I thought you were doing maybe once a day, once a week, or something like that.
I go into the practice once a week, but I'm no longer seeing patients. How it happened was after COVID, we got all our other optometrists back, and got, as we were ramping up again after lockdowns and things like that. And then after a couple of months, I remember saying to my practice manager, we should probably get a few clinics booked in with me. I think I was doing 1 or 2 clinics a month at the time. And she said, well, to be honest, Conor, I don't think we need to. Nobody's asking for you. And I said, but what about Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones and, all my students? And she was like, well, no, they see Alex now. And yeah, Mrs. Smith, she sees pre. So you're good, Conor. So I was like, all right, okay. So I just thought it was a good opportunity at that point to step back. But yeah, there is an ego, not ego, an identity. It is wrapped up in your own identity. I'm an optometrist. This is what I do. But I think how you get there is step by step. So initially it was being brave enough for me to, block myself out where I'm not available to see patients day by day. I reduced how many days I was seeing patients by 1 day, spent that day on the business. Business grew, and then I did let's take another step back, reduced by another day, and seeing the business. So I kind of got there step by step over the years. And I think it's about finding the right balance for you. So as I said, I was really passionate about optometry when I graduated, and by leaning into business and beginning to explore it, I find that even more fascinating than optometry, because there's so much, and it really does boil down to psychology and understanding human beings and figuring out there's just a lot to go at, and you can make a big difference through your business rather than just a single patient in front of you. So anyway, it was something I became passionate about and built up confidence in myself doing that over time. So I think that's how you do it. And then in terms of, we didn't study this at university, we didn't necessarily go and get an MBA or anything like that. For me, and I think for a lot of independent practice owners, it is about, we have to live in the world of results. So it's not about knowing business theory, and it's not about how smart you are. It's about your ability to get results. So it is kind of that, I don't know if you would call it a DIY approach, but it's just learning from others, modeling other people. There's so many great books from other business owners that you can just get inspired and find things that allow you to do a better job. And I think business is quite simple when you boil it down to its core parts. I think the complexity comes from how much of it there is and how many things you need to look after. But I think most things can be understood quite simply if you can break it down to first principles, which again, I think it's just spending time reading, learning, trying things, putting things into action, treating your business, treating your practice as your laboratory where we're going to give this thing a try. Let's figure it out, see what we learn, that kind of approach. So in my experience, all the successful independent business owners and practice owners that I've met and know are, it's not about their amazing education. They're kind of self-taught, if you like. They've gone out and modeled people. They've been willing to have a go, and they've paid attention to results and fine-tuned and figured it out as they went. So I wouldn't kind of, if anyone's listening, I wouldn't psych yourself out thinking that, business is beyond you or anything like that. I don't think it is.
Yeah, good to know, because I think there are definitely times when I felt that way. Is like this, maybe I'm just not cut out for business. But after hearing some of the stuff that some of your content, hearing you speak, it does make it more sounds more approachable. And I guess with the support from somebody like yourself, it maybe can become more approachable and more, like you said, down to first principles and taking it step by step. Sometimes you look at the whole thing and it just seems overwhelming, right? How do I move this mountain? But like you said, it's rock, stone by stone. And having the support of somebody along the way is always helpful. Having a little guidance, because otherwise you don't know which stone to pick up first, and you just end up freezing and not making any decisions. So there's, another thing that I heard from you that I found really interesting is we're talking about sales, of course, and optical success. In North America especially, but I imagine in other parts of the country, there's a really big move, seems to be an evolution towards a bit more medical optometry. Buy this piece of equipment, offer this new treatment option, things like that, as a way to continue to expand the scope of our practice as medical professionals, and serve our patients better. But the other reason is, of course, it helps to create new revenue streams and build the business. But I know you've kind of said, and in all of that, the part of the reason we're doing that is because it seems like the eyewear side of things is just commoditized. And yes, there's Specsavers and people go to Costco or they go to wherever and they buy them cheap and they buy them in bulk. And so I'm just selling another piece of plastic. So I'm not going to spend that much time focusing on developing the optical. I'm going to build the other areas, streams of revenue. But your feeling is that optical is actually the biggest opportunity in our businesses. And I'd love for you to share your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So where to start? I think so. You definitely.
Sorry, that's a loaded question.
No, you're fine. Just trying to get my thoughts in order. I think yes. You mentioned sales first of all. So for me, and definitely I've been through this as a business owner in the beginning when I first opened my practice. If we don't make sales, it's a bad day. So it's like the most important thing is how can we make sales, because that's the lifeblood of the business that allows us to do all the good stuff that we want to do for people. So that kind of has to be priority one. Like, not unless we sell something, nothing's gonna happen. That's kind of the beginning. In terms of the need, then, well, I guess and I think it is similar in North America, but here in the UK particularly, the fee and the fees that are earned for eye exams is so low that it's such a small part of the practice. It probably has improved in recent years, as you said, through medical optometry and people going down that route. But when I opened my practice 20 years ago, it was breaking even or making a loss on the eye exam. And then as long as you sold glasses, you can have a profitable business. So for me, it was trying to just keep it simple and say, okay, well, the thing that actually drives the business is the sale of the glasses. So why not let's just figure out how to do that really, really well. Like, that business is complicated. Let's try and make it simple. What's the main thing? The main thing is selling glasses. So that, from an economic standpoint, it was like, that would make sense. Like, the more glasses we sell, if we do that as well as it can be done, the better the business will be. And then I think from really just listening to customers and patients coming in, so many people that need glasses and wear glasses, but they hate them and they're frustrated by glasses. If you just mention they're an optometrist, most of the time people will tell you about how, they can't see and they hate wearing glasses and they feel old. And when they go to look and choose glasses, they never know what suits them. And is this the men's frames or the women's frame? And they're always losing their glasses and breaking their glasses. And there's this frustration around, eyewear. So that's a problem and a pain that if we can solve that, then we're really helping people. And there's loads and loads and loads of people that's a problem that they would benefit from solving. And yeah, that's what drives the business. So, win-win. That was kind of my approach. And that's why I think it is a big opportunity. I think for most optometrists and practice owners, the optical is an afterthought because they're in optometry mode. And they don't put as much energy and time into how can we do the retail aspect of what we do as well as it can possibly be done. So that's why it's an opportunity, as most practices don't, they really don't try to excel in that area. And I think that's just the big opportunity. I think as well, our industry's changed a lot over the years in terms of just the competition and the size of some of the big businesses. And I think if you're independent, the one area where you'll always be able to excel, if you choose to, is your ability to personalize your business, take more time with every individual patient and client, make the experience more special, more tailored to that person. So in terms of your ability to slow it down and take time with every individual patient, the big boys can never do that. So it's a game. I think you're playing a game that you can win then. So for me, eyewear just ticks all the boxes. And yeah, there's a really good analogy or framework that Jim Collins talks about that I read about years ago that kind of resonated with me. So he wrote the book Good to Great, as well as many other business books. So great books, and fully recommend them. But one of the things he talks about is the hedgehog principle. So the idea, I'll try not to butcher this, but the hedgehog principle is based on the hedgehog being pretty simple little creature, and it can only do one thing well. In terms of its defense mechanism, all it knows how to do is roll up into a ball and get its little spikes out, and that's all it can do. It hasn't got any other tricks, but it's actually really, really effective. And the fox can never really get the hedgehog because it can't penetrate his defense system. So no matter how cunning the fox is, and the fox can have 150 different ways to try and catch the hedgehog only got one thing, but it just works. So that was kind of his analogy for successful businesses, and businesses that went from good to being great. They had their version of the hedgehog principle, the one thing that they obsess over more than anything else. So for me, that was eyewear. But there's three things that he points out as three ingredients, if you like, to having a successful hedgehog principle. So in his book, he shows it as three concentric circles that are overlapping. So one of the circles is, are you deeply passionate about this thing? So that would be, if you were trying to decide where should my practice specialize, one circle is, am I deeply passionate about it? Second circle is, does it drive the economic engine of the business? So does it actually drive the economic engine of the business? And then the third circle is, can we be the best in the world at this? So we might not be the best in the world, but can we be the best in the world if we really obsess over it? And if you can find something that is in that area where those three circles overlap, where it's something that we're deeply passionate about, it drives the economic engine of the business, and we can be the best in the world at this, then that's a really good hedgehog principle that will lead to, way above average success. So for me, that eyewear fits perfectly in there. I'm not like super passionate about eyewear from a style point of view. Really, I think what I'm passionate about is helping people look good and feel good in eyewear, and the whole experience that goes with that, having the right products, the right environment, the right service, the right experience, the right team serving. I'm passionate about just delivering the best eyewear experience possible. So that's that. Does it drive the economic engine? Yes. And in my business, 90% of our revenue is all eyewear sales, because we've kind of specialized so much in that. And can we be the best in the world at it? Yeah, absolutely. We've got more, in my practice, we've got more qualified opticians than probably most practices anywhere. So we've really loaded up on the expertise around helping people with their glasses. So it ticks those boxes, and I think there's a lot that you can get excited about. There's a lot your team can get excited about. And I think patients really, they really appreciate it because of how it makes them feel. And for a lot of people, their glasses are, an important part of their lives, and it's work that you can, make a difference in. So that's the eyewear opportunity in a nutshell.
Right. I like that. Any reference to Jim Collins, Good to Great. I love it. And I do remember the hedgehog principle. Yes, the fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one thing really well, right? That certainly makes sense. And I think making it relevant to your own business, because I think you could look at that Venn diagram of the three circles, but then you could wonder, like, okay, well, what am I passionate about, or what would drive the business? I think that's a bit of the homework that each of us would need to do to then find that what goes right in the middle there. But we may have it right in front of us and we're not really looking at it, right? We have the optical opportunity there to make it amazing. So in your discussions, in your webinars, you talk about these three systems that we need to have in place to really build a successful optical business. I'd love to go through that a little bit and kind of touch on each of them and how we might be able to optimize each system, or even start to develop it if we maybe don't have it already going in our own businesses. Do you have a preference of which one you'd like to start with?
I'll let you. You can.
Well, my preference is marketing, because I feel like many of us, and again myself included here, are maybe not doing enough in terms of marketing, but also maybe don't even know which direction to go. We hear about Google ads and Facebook ads, and
Yeah.
should we be emailing people, or what? How should we get in front of our patients and bring in new patients?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. We can start with marketing.
Before we do that, apologies. What are the 3 systems, and then we'll start with marketing.
So the marketing system is kind of critical, and that's how you get customers. So that's the beginning of any business. The eyewear sales system is my selling system, if you like, for eyewear. There's the practice design system, which is, I don't know if I'm going more detailed than what your list is, but stop me if I am. The practice design system is really about it's not just about products when it comes to selling eyewear. It's about the whole retail experience. So you need to make your practice fit that, and actually your environment is actually created to your marketing as well. And then there's your staff training system, which is, we need a team to deliver this. How do we make that happen? So that's kind of the systems I had.
Love it. Okay, you got one extra in there, that practice design, but that's excellent. Okay. That's good.
Cool.
But you're right, it goes to marketing, which as we'll talk about, like referral marketing, is that if somebody comes in and has a wow experience, they're likely to tell others about it. That goes back to marketing. But let's do the marketing, if you don't mind. Just touch on a couple of key things in marketing there that might help give us a little bit of insight into what we should be doing, and maybe how we can start to approach some of that.
Yeah. Okay. So marketing, I started learning about because I had no clue. I knew my practice was in a big city in Manchester. I knew there was all these people that need glasses, but how do we find them, and how do we get them? So something I've probably studied more than anything else. One of the most helpful mentors I found was a guy called Dan Kennedy, an American guy who is a direct response marketing guy. And again, in terms of getting the first principles of marketing, I really learned a lot of that from him and his books. So he's worth studying. But he has what he calls his USP question. So his USP question is basically saying, why should I, the customer, choose to do business with you versus all the other options that I have, including the option of doing nothing? So it's a really good question, is why should I choose to do business with you versus all the other options that I have, including the option of doing nothing? And really our job as a business owner is to be able to have really, really good answers to that, not just in terms of verbally how we say it, but about everything we do. So I think another big clue is marketing is not just advertising. Marketing is everything, and everything is marketing. So marketing is the way my practice looks. Marketing is whether I choose to wear glasses when I'm at work. Marketing is what my staff wear. Marketing is how we answer the phone. Marketing is the fact that we're in a big bank building. It's how do we get people's attention, and how do we, what does it say about us? So this was kind of how my I guess education into marketing started. So rather than getting stuck in the media of, just getting obsessed about media, which I think a lot of people do, I kind of got obsessed with why should anybody choose to come and see us? Well, let's make the practice look. How do we make it look more special? How do we make it look more different? Because there's so many practices out there that all kind of look the same. So if they all look the same, then why would anybody choose to come to us? We need to look different. Okay, what would be appealing? What would be interesting? What would be, so it's those types of questions, I think, that create a practice that is, something that is different and appealing.
Have you heard of, Conor, have you heard of Seth Godin?
I have heard of Seth Godin. I've listened to his podcast quite a bit. I haven't studied too many of his books, but really smart guy. Yeah.
Really great guy. Canadian too. I always have to make sure if there's somebody Canadian, I got to make sure I let people know. This is part of being, a Canadian podcast. You always have to promote Canada, especially these days with all the tariffs and things and whatnot's going on between the US, where, we're buying groceries and they all got these little maple leaf flags on them that they didn't used to have on them now because they want people to know they're made in Canada. Anyways, totally different tangent, unnecessary. We have lots of American listeners and viewers, and we love, of course. And all the conversations we have are they transcend these boundaries of geographic boundaries, right? These are all business conversations. But beside the point, Seth Godin, great author. And he says that everything's just like you said. There's one little thing you said that reminded me of Seth Godin, which is everything is marketing. Everything. Obviously this conversation we're having, the podcast, everything is marketing, or marketing is involved with everything we do. Assuming it's a business and you're trying to grow it, is marketing involved. But the other thing, actually, going back to something you were saying earlier, his book Purple Cow, or again, what you're talking about now is differentiating yourself. And I think the big issue that we all have is that we are all doing, a lot of us doing the same thing, trying to do it a little bit better, or a little bit faster, or charge a little bit. I don't know what, but with the Purple Cow theory is like, you've got to do it something so different that it makes people stop and say, whoa, I've never had that before. And the idea is, if you drive down the street and you see a brown cow, you don't think anything of it. But if you saw a purple cow, you'd park your car and take a photo, right? Yeah. That's the concept there. So, and I just thought that lined up with a lot of what you're just saying about you own your practice is in a bank building, and the service you offer, the way it looks inside, all of this is all part of that purple cow sort of approach to it. And I would love to take an approach like that in my practice, but I wouldn't even know where to start, right? If we're talking about the design side of things. But let's go down the marketing rabbit hole a little bit further. If we're trying to attract new people who've never seen our practice before, never heard of us before, what would you suggest as kind of being one or two places to start that sort of that search?
Yeah. Well, I always feel when I give this answer, it's not the answer that people want to hear. So I think
that's good. That means it's probably the right answer.
What people want to hear is, go run these ads on these media, and people start booking in and buying glasses. But it's not really as simple as that. I think advertising by itself, unless you've solved that first problem of why should anybody choose to do business with you versus all the other options, if you can't honestly say it's because of this, and because we do this differently, and because we are specialized in this, and we are, unless you can answer that, you don't really have anything worth marketing beyond just a kind of commodity. And that's a tough position to be in, to spend money to try and get people to come to something that looks just the same as everywhere else. So for me, if I wanted to attract people, I would want to create an experience. So another Walt Disney quote is, again, I'm not going to get this right, but it's basically, it's not treat them so well, but it's something along the lines of treat them so well that they can't not tell other people about you, and they can't wait to come back. So it all starts in about what's the experience like within our four walls? What is that like? What does that feel like? What does that make our clients, patients feel? So by the end of that experience, they've been, we've had so many wows. They're going home to tell their wife. They're telling their colleagues at work. They're wearing glasses that people are going to comment on and say, oh, where do you get those? They're going to leave us a 5-star review where it's proper, enthusiastic. You can tell with reviews whether somebody's going through the obligation of, it was great service, tick 5 stars, versus the ones that there's an outpouring of enthusiasm. So all of that good stuff comes from creating this great experience. So I think creating the great experience is the foundation of all marketing success. And like you said about not knowing where to start, it's quite simple as well. It's about it's lots of little things that just add up. Like even in the beginning, it was for us just serving coffees, nice coffees, and we got a nice coffee machine, and we got some frothy milk, and we got a little stencil with a glasses shape, and now we have like sprinkles in the shape of glasses, and like we could stop there, and the amount of conversations that happen because we've served them a coffee that was way beyond their expectations. So it's building those things, and even offering people would you like a glass of water? And they say, yeah, I'll have a drink of water. And then you say, would you prefer still or sparkling? Words, still or sparkling. And they're like, oh my God, I get
that elevates that right away. All of a sudden, I feel like I'm in a fancy place.
So there's a lot of those little things. They're called critical non-essential. So they're not really essential, like being in a bank, serving coffees, having talking points in the practice. None of that is essential to optometry or delivering great glasses. But it's critical because that really forms people's perception of you and your business, and they perceive that if you care so much about all these little details, then you must be great at everything that you do. So for me, it would be start with the experience. That should then drive like enthusiastic reviews. It should drive word of mouth, referrals. How else? I think another big missed opportunity for practice owners is they're communicating with their existing patients and on an ongoing basis, but not just in it's time for you to come for an eye exam, please book in. And not just in a salesy way, but communicating with them regularly. A newsletter strategy is one of our biggest. It's kind of, I guess, probably the foundation of our marketing and foundation of the relationships that we want to keep building and nurturing with our clients. So in my business, 70% of our revenue every year is from our existing clients. So I would be an idiot if I didn't communicate with those people regularly, because there's 70% of my business. So I spend money there. And then otherwise, media-wise, it's build an email list with your existing patients, have a nice profile online. So when people look you up online, they see life and they see energy and they see reviews and they see photos of happy, smiling customers. And I think I think the principle is put personality into your marketing. So I think, again, it's all about being different. It's all about coming across as real. I think if you're an independent practice, people, that's the appeal. It's people feeling that they're dealing with real people that care and that are genuine and that have a life, and knowing little bits about the people in your business. So sharing elements of who you are and what you stand for, and putting that into the media, I think is the key. So I think most marketing is kind of lacking personality, and it's too generic. So it's really a message problem, I think. Most practices are just saying the same things, versus if you can zero in on a message that's going to appeal to your ideal clients, your ideal market, then there's a lot of power in that. And then if you add your personality on top of that, then now you have something worthwhile that's a lot more effective. Yeah.
The interesting thing there, it sounds like, and you were saying right off the top of this, answering this question, is like your answer is probably not what everybody wants to hear, right? Everybody wants to hear step 1, 2, 3. Here's, go to Google, pay this much, put this keyword in, do that kind of thing. But it sounds like it actually has to start from within, is building, designing a practice the way that you want, that's going to be different, and that you are so passionate about your practice, that you are so in love with your practice that you want to go tell other people about it, because then your marketing will be genuinely, authentically coming from like, look at us and all the cool things we do, versus like XYZ optical selling glasses, 30% off, advertising, which is what most again, myself included, most of us are doing. So it sounds like if we start from within, that develops this all various forms of marketing, whereas, you get the wows for the patients, you get the referral marketing, but you also develop your own passion to market yourself because you feel so strongly about what you do.
Yeah. And I think it links nicely back to the hedgehog principle. Is there's something we're really passionate about. And then if you put that out there, that will attract the people that's an interest to them as well. And I think the other missing ingredient from most people's marketing is empathy, in terms of understanding. So I think empathy is understanding the feeling of another person, and being able to articulate that. So if we can articulate to our patients, even just simple things like listen to what they say. If your ad was saying something like, do you hate choosing glasses? Do you, struggle to find glasses that fit you and suit you? Do all the rows and rows of glasses all start to look the same? If so, there is a better way. Like I've created probably a pretty good ad there just by repeating back to the patient what the problem is. So there is a lot of just listening to the problems that your patients repeatedly tell you, and then you just say, that becomes a big part of your marketing message. And if you look on my website at jonesan.co, when we do run ads, literally our patients kind of write the copy for us. They tell us, this is my problem. And then our ad becomes, is this your problem? If so, we can help. It's simple in that way. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. And actually that leads me to the next. So let's talk about the sales system here. And one of the things that you were saying, or I've heard you say, is to focus more on asking questions when we're in the retail space and we're talking about how sales. It's more about that empathy comes into play, right? Asking the questions, learning from the patient, and then being able to solve their problem. If you could just tell me a little bit more about that, asking questions versus selling.
Yeah. So that for me, selling was a hang up that, in the beginning, I didn't know how to do it. Probably the associations I would have had with selling were mainly negative. Like, I think that's probably the norm. And we don't want to be, generally optometrists are good people. We want to help people. So the last thing we want to do is kind of be awkward or make people feel awkward or put people under pressure or come across as salesy. So I had a lot of hangups. And again, studied selling, hired some consultants and people to kind of coach me and help me. But the kind of breakthrough came for me when I realized I went into that coaching thinking, okay, this guy's going to teach me all the right things to say and all the right answers to all the questions that patients have. I'll have the right answer and the best answer. And really, it wasn't that at all. It was the opposite. He taught me that it's not about the answers, it's about the questions. So it's about learning how to ask questions and how to help. The way that you help patients is by helping them think through things, by asking good questions that they haven't really taken the time to think about. And when you do that, patients arrive at their own conclusions about what would help them, and they make their own decisions. So I think selling is really how you serve. It's how you help people, and how you help them realize, get a clear idea of what their problem is versus what they, what future state they want to achieve. And you can help them explore the options and let them decide with your guidance. So it's I think liberating when you do it that way, because now it's not about making assumptions and guessing about who's going to spend money and who's not. It's not about pressurizing people. It's not about pushing people. It's about just being an expert and being able to listen, and ask good questions so that they think a little bit differently themselves, and then give them your recommendations and give them choices. And there's no pressure. They can pick whatever they want to choose. So I think it's when you understand that it's about asking questions, it is quite liberating, and it makes it easier, I think, to build your confidence and get good at selling. And I think one of the main problems for our industry is, and this is a reason that a lot of sales probably don't happen, is a lack of asking questions, a lack of understanding of the patient. So if I took at random, any eye exam that happens in Vancouver today or in Manchester today, and let's ask the optometrist straight afterwards, what do they know about that person? Most of what they know is limited to, this is a prescription, their fundus is healthy, there's a history, and this is what I recommend in their next eye exams. They haven't taken the time to explore how many pairs of glasses does that person have? What do they wear them for? What is their job really? Not like a tick box, they're an accountant. Well, what does that mean? Like, what are they actually doing? Do they enjoy wearing glasses? Do they not? Do they wear sunglasses? If not, why not? And like, why did they come to you versus all the other practices? Why did they not go back to the last place? All of those questions haven't been asked. And those are the questions that I think create all the opportunities. And
it certainly sounds like it opens a lot of opportunities for conversation. And again, problem, it's not just opportunities to sell a product, opportunities to resolve a problem that the patient is having, which is, I think, at the foundation is what we want to do. Who is asking all these questions, and at what stage of the process? Is this upon entry? Is this when they call in to book an eye exam? Is this after, during the eye exam, after? What stage? Are there different questions at different stages?
Yeah, a couple of things. On the phone call, and again, a lot of what I'm saying here, people will probably think, oh my God, that sounds like hard work. But the answer, I think the real question is, what kind of practice do you want to have long term? Like, do you want to have, super successful, profitable, enjoyable? And I'm all for choosing the thing that's going to get you what you want long term. So for me, on the phone, that shouldn't be like a 2-minute transactional kind of book an eye exam. Yeah. How about Monday at 3:00? Yeah, that's good. Okay, you're booked in. It shouldn't be a transactional thing. It should be a 5 to 10 minute conversation about, great. Yeah, I can help you with that. Why do you need an eye exam? And if they're a new patient, where did you go last time? Any reason why you're not going back there? Have you got any concerns? So there should be some of those questions happening. I call it an eyewear discovery conversation. So we should be discovering and having a conversation with the patient at all times. So on the phone, take a few minutes. So we know their story of why are they coming here and what's the problem and why did they not go there last time and what's their frustrations, what's important to them. A few minutes on the phone. Then at the eye exam, when I bought my second practice, we increased the length of time for an eye exam so that we could have up to a 10-minute conversation during the eye exam that allows us time to go a bit more in depth to find out who is Harbir, what's his challenges, why is he here, why did he not go elsewhere, has he got any fears or frustrations of, what's going on. So we bake in time for the optometrist to do that. And then for the dispensing optician, before we start showing them frames, so in my practice, it's kind of a sit-down consultation, taking all our frames off display, apart from a really small kind of display, just so it reassures people that they're in the right kind of place. So
you don't have frames on display like on the walls, or
no.
So how do people shop frames then?
Well, how I got to that was I just didn't think it helps. Just listening to people getting confused, hate choosing glasses. It's just most frame bars and shelves. It's too much like a TK Maxx experience where you're just rifling through stuff and it's very tiring and fatiguing and not that helpful. Plus, I want to be different. So we can actually be better as well. So basically how it works is you come in. So if you walked into my practice, your line would be, do you have glasses? And my staff would be, yeah, of course we do. And then we have these big drawers, nice drawers. They can pull it open. And the frames are shown beautifully in the drawers. And we'll start a conversation and ask, so what brought you in? What's brought you in? Why are you looking for glasses? What's going on? And it gives us an opportunity to engage and talk to the patient and let them know a little bit about the type of eyewear we have and why we do that. But really the conversation's about them. And then it's like, if they want to look at glasses, great, grab a seat. Do you want a coffee? They have a coffee, they're grabbing a seat. Let me get a few frames that I know will fit you and suit you based on your face shape. Tell me a little bit about what kind of styles do you generally like? Is there anything you like, don't like? So it's kind of more consultative. So they're sitting down and my team will go and select frames and bring them to the patient. So it's less overwhelming. They don't need to look at hundreds and hundreds of frames that aren't going to be right for them. We can show them all the possibilities that are going to be good for them without all the confusion. And they can be sitting, having a coffee, a beer, Prosecco, whatever they want. And so a big part of the dispensing process is the team just having a conversation about that client and what they want and why they're there, and any frustrations they have about eyewear. So we kind of try and turn the experience on its head a little bit, but it is more effective as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. That certainly is a purple cow experience. So certainly would love to learn more into that about that process. But given in the interest of time, let's just move forward. I wanted to ask you about the importance of having a sales script, and how one would go about developing something like that.
Yeah. And are you thinking in any particular?
Well, let's say in the sense of, well, first of all, presenting the price and the conversation around the actual sale, the transaction of it. Is there a script there when the patient has chosen a frame and they've had the full experience, they've sipped on their latte, and now it's like, okay, it's time to talk about, you have to give me money in exchange for this pair of glasses.
Yeah.
How does your team approach that?
Yeah. Okay. So, and I think that's a really good part of the journey that you've picked, because so if we talk about presenting lens options or lens prices, because we have to do that for every single patient pretty much that's going to buy glasses. And I think the problems are, and the reason I'll talk about problems a lot is, if we understand what the problems are, then it makes it clearer what the solution is, and it can help us know how to do things, rather than just feeling that, we should do it this way because we said so. I think for me, if I understand what's the problem and, all right, that's the solution, it makes it easier. So the problem is, if I'm seeing you and you're my patient, I'm kind of trying to guess, like, does this guy look like he has money? Should I tell him about my best lenses? Or does he look like he doesn't have money? Should I tell him about the basic lenses? Should I give him 4 options? Should I give him 2 options? Should I talk about maybe he might want more than 1 pair? Or do I feel confident enough to even broach that? There's all these assumptions and guesswork, and a lot of the challenges are, some staff and optometrists will be really confident and their enthusiasm will get good results, and then you could give the exact same patient to another staff member and they get a completely different result because they're not confident. They're not even going to show you my best frames because I'm scared of those. So it's a really important area to have a script that makes it easy for any team member to just, get out of their own head and just follow the process. It's nice and comfortable for everybody. You don't have to guess. There's no pressure, and it just flows. So I'll just grab my little. This is our price menu. I don't know if you can see it, but again, just being different. Very so nice. This is it's basically like a menu holder. So this is from like a restaurant supplier. You got a little leather menu holder. So this is how we present price. So we do it visually for the patient.
Before you go on, Conor, so for anybody who's just listening, which I imagine is most people, but if you're not watching on YouTube, what Conor just presented is something that actually looks like one of those sort of leather-bound menus that you get at a nice restaurant. And sorry, go ahead now, Conor. So if you're not watching, go check it on YouTube. But this is how you present the price to your patients, your customers.
Yeah. So and I think where this came from, there's a couple of things. I'll try and do it quickly. This for me came from paying attention to what Apple did. When you go into the Apple store, and this is probably 2015, maybe when I first kind of started doing it this way. But if you go into Apple, there's a couple of things. They're not shy about telling you about their best, newest iPhone. That's what they're going to tell you about.
Yeah.
There are also options. So if you don't want the best one, that's fine. There's a couple other iPhones as well. But they don't let you know that. They don't say, well, if you don't want the iPhone, I don't even know what number it is, iPhone 15. If you don't want that, it's okay. We can still get an iPhone 2. And there's an iPhone 3. And there's an iPhone. They don't do that. They discontinue stuff. So they control how many options they give you. So that's a learning. I want to control how many options I give people. Also, if I want to give people choices to make, I want to make it really simple. So the iPhone choices are, do you want the new one or the slightly older one? Then it's like, do you want the big one or the small one? Like, these are choices that people can make, big or small. That's easy. Do you want the white one or the black one? Well, I can pick the white or black. Do you want the big memory or the small memory? So they make the choices kind of easy for the patient, it's easy for the customer. It's not super technical. Like, you don't need to know much about an iPhone to choose big, small, white, black, big memory, small memory. So I really wanted to kind of use some of those principles in terms of the options and how many options we give to patients. So we would be showing this to the patient, because this is what happens in Apple as well. Is if you look at their top of the range iPhone with their most, largest memory, and the top of the range one, fully kitted out, is probably pretty expensive. So now whichever one you're looking at probably isn't as expensive as that. So you now feel better about the price that you're looking at, rather than if you just saw that one price, you're going to perceive that differently. So the fact that they're showing you some higher price things, it gives you contrast. So for the way we present prices is we put it in front of people. We'll show them just the lenses that are relevant to them, if it's single vision or if it's multifocal, but let's say single vision for simplicity. So that will have the 1.74 and the 1.76 single vision lenses on there. That not most of our patients don't need that. So the fact that lens is £570 is going to make them feel better about the $365 probably that they're going to spend on theirs. So we've got that contrast principle in play. But in terms of how we give them the options, is basically we'd recommend the index. So for you, Harbier, based on your prescription and to give you thin and flat lenses, I think a 1.6 lens is going to be really nice. I don't think you necessarily need the 1.67 or the 1.74. That's really for people that have a higher prescription. So I'm making you feel okay. I'm building trust. And then I'm going to give you two options. So this is our premium lens. That is the one that we use most often. You'll absolutely love it. It comes with all the coatings as standard. And then this is the top of the range one that is great for people where their vision is really important to them and they just want the absolute best. So that's $395. So which would you prefer? Do you want the premium version or the top of the range? And so those kinds of scripts, in really simple language, I'm not talking about technology. I'm really just saying, here's who this is for. This is what we use most often. You'll love it. This is the option. This is what I'd recommend. I'll give you a couple of choices. Which would you prefer? And normally you would pick one of those things. And the thing that happens is there's a lot of patients that will surprise you. And I might think never in a million years are you going to go for this top lens, but you'll turn around and say, you know what, I haven't changed my glasses in 3 years. Let's just go for the best. The only other thing that can happen is you can hesitate and either not pick one of those two lenses or make an excuse. I have to go and feed the dog. I just remembered. So if any of that happens, then I can let you know, okay, well, just so you know, there are other options as well. So if the person doesn't pick what we've just offered, then we turn the page to our more basic lenses. So just so you know, we do have 1.6 single vision lenses that start from, 185. So there's an option there and there's an option there. And there's no right or wrong. It's just about picking what's best for you in terms of the quality of the lens, the quality of the vision versus how much you want to spend on your glasses. What do you think? How does that fit with what you had in mind? So we're kind of presenting things simply, simple language, we're giving choices, and then we're asking the patient, what do you think? And then if they don't pick or like any of those options, we'll say, that's okay. There's other options as well. Here's another couple. What do you think? And then just a last quick thing, on the other side of the page, we have sunglasses, select sunglasses UV protection as a stimulant to make sure we talk to everybody about sunglasses. Do you wear sunglasses? Do you not? Well, this is how that would work. And then we have an offer as well where if they do buy more than one pair of glasses, they can save money if they're getting two pairs at the same time. So again, that's there. And again, the way we would phrase that would be, just so you know, we do have an offer with our lens supplier. So if you did buy more than one pair at the same time, it's a really good saving. But it only makes sense to do that if you think you would actually wear more than one pair or use sunglasses or something. So just to make you aware of that, let me know if you want me to explore that with you. So I'm really just trying to make people's choices easy, not overwhelm them with options, and make them aware of the things they probably should think about, like sunglasses, different types of lenses, multiple pairs. And then it's just kind of, practicing those basics and getting your team comfortable with them so that they don't feel that they have to guess about who wants what, because you don't know.
No, that's excellent. Thank you for going through all of that. That's it's really cool to see the process that you have, and especially visually as well. And ultimately coming down to, I think one of the key tenets of this conversation is that experience for the patient. That menu is, I never actually heard it referred to as a menu, and it actually looks like a menu. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Certainly something I'm going to explore for our office as well. I did want to talk about training, but why don't we quickly touch on training and a training system and how important it is to have something like that in place
For your staff?
For the staff.
Yeah. So for me, there's a couple of reasons. One, I think probably one of the reasons that most practice owners decide to open a business is the idea to have a little bit more freedom, hopefully. We love what we do, but it'd be nice to have be able to take a holiday once in a while. So the only way we can really do that is if we have a team of people that deliver a great experience without us there. And ideally, if I go on holiday, I don't want to be pestered every 5 minutes with phone calls. So my people kind of need to know how to do their jobs really well. So the only way we're going to get there is regular ongoing training, almost a little bit like I love watching, Netflix documentaries about sporting teams, like I'm watching Drive to Survive at the minute, the Jordan one, The Last Dance, all these things that show you behind the scenes of what it takes to build a team. So I don't know, I think you're a little bit like a team manager. If you're a practice owner, it's all about getting the best out of the team and putting in the practice and building up the repetitions and making people believe in themselves and showing them ways that they can get better results, and making people grow. So for me, I think the regular foundation is weekly team meetings and weekly training, and that's your practice. That's how we get better. And if our people grow in their abilities, that's how the business grows. The business isn't going to grow unless the team is growing in their confidence in their abilities. I think at a slightly bigger picture level, your team need to care and be bought into the vision you have for your practice. So I think it's a smart strategy to do what I call a retreat day, which is a day where you take the day out of the practice with the whole team and you just talk about, here's why we exist, here's what we can do and offer our patients that's different than other places, here's why I feel that's good, here's the kind of business we want to be. And you do that in a way that the team are engaged and the team of input, so they don't feel that it's Conor's plan, they feel like it's our plan. And as well as coming up with strategic things about what do we want to do more of this year, what do we want to do less of this year, what do we want to stop doing that's kind of causing everybody stress, and let's make a plan. So you have this bigger plan for the year, you have a vision that your team are hopefully bought into, and then your weekly training is your practice where you're just constantly working at doing the drills the same way that a sports team. It's all about the performance on the pitch is all about what's happening during the rest of the week when they're at practice. And it's just about getting the team on board with you.
So you as the owner, you're becoming more of the coach or the manager, right? So you're not actually, or like you said, you step by step, you sort of stepped away from patient care. Yeah. The coach doesn't come on the pitch and kick the ball or go on the rink and hit the puck. That the coach is telling the players what to do. And so if the coach has done their job well, they are able to go out onto the field and play the way that they're supposed to play and do the things they're supposed to do. I think that's a really good. I'm a big sports guy too, and I love the sports analogies and the Netflix documentaries as well. But it's interesting to look at it that way. I haven't really thought about it that way. And I like your comparison of what you call a brute force business versus if you want to complete that sentence and tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so a brute force business is a business that's succeeding at least to a point, but just on the brute force and the hard work and the sweat and the tears and the passion and the charisma of the owner, versus a sum of the parts business is a business that no longer is relying on the brute force of the owner. It's the sum of the parts. So even if you have team members that maybe don't care quite as much as you care as the owner, but the sum of the parts of a great team made up of great individuals is greater. So in terms of what you can achieve through your team, there's far more leverage, and you can. So it's like my business is doing better than ever, and I'm in it less than ever. So that either says something about me that I'm an influence, but I think it's just about creating opportunity for people to shine and be themselves, and that adds up to a lot more than if you're just trying to make it all happen. It's just you, and you're pushing everything uphill, and you're doing everything yourself, and you don't trust your team enough to delegate to them and let them make mistakes and let them learn. The long-term result is far better, I think, if you start building a business that's the sum of the parts, and that's how you get to a place where you can design your business to be the way you want it, so you can work in the practice seeing patients as much as you want. But you need to take care of the responsibilities of the owner is building the team, marketing, strategy, setting the vision. So you need to make sure you're at least allocating enough time to take care of that. And then when you're not in the practice, everything should be running like clockwork and doing well. So I think your team will often surprise you in terms of what they can do and what they're capable of if you invest in doing that kind of stuff with them.
That's great. That's a great insight as well. I like that sum of the parts. What's the term that? Oh gosh, it's eluding me. There's like a German phrase for that, right? Anyways, I'm losing it now. All right, thank you for that. I would have loved to have dived deeper into each of these, but then we would be recording a 3-hour podcast, and I have yet to do that. I'm not sure if my listeners would get all the way through a 3-hour podcast. They probably would if it was this much great insight, Conor, that you've been sharing. So the amount that you've already shared is amazing, but I always like to cap off each episode with this one last little quirky segment. I don't know if you're into Disney movies, but have you seen the movie Moana before?
I haven't. My kids are 14 and 12, so we haven't kind of watched much Disney stuff in recent years.
That's okay. All good. I know there's plenty of guests I have had on who don't know the reference, but that's all good. But within that, I'll give you a quick background, the context to the question I'm about to ask you. So in that movie Moana, there's a character named Maui who is a kind of a godlike figure, and he's very egotistical. And he's saying to the other characters, like, well, you're welcome. I gave you this. I gave you all these beautiful things. Well, you're welcome. Kind of a, tongue in cheek. So I call this segment, You're Welcome, because this is a chance for you, Conor, with all your experience and knowledge to share something with us that's profound and powerful, and it's going to change our lives. And we're going to say thank you, and then you will say you're welcome. Sound good?
You're welcome. I don't know.
Well, you're welcome I guess for everything you've already shared, but let's do this little section. So let's do You're Welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. So Conor, what is one quote or one really big piece of advice, lesson learned that you could share with us that would help change our business or change our lives?
Okay. So obviously there's lots of things. If I was picking one, what came to mind when you flagged it up there a moment ago is just about being yourself and realizing that you're good enough. I think even going back to the beginning of what you said about, we become business owners as optometrists, but we often lack the skills, and more importantly, lack the confidence in ourselves that we can do this. So for me, I think, like if you could see me at school, I was never anybody that anybody would expect. This guy can do this or whatever. I was always just worked hard. That was it. I always got commitment prizes in my school in Ireland. They had these prizes for academic first, academic second, most improved. I would always get like a commitment prize, which is like, it doesn't really try hard. But for me, that's been enough. And I think as an independent practice owner, it's realizing that you can be you can be yourself, you can play to your strengths, you can make your practice the way you want it to be. And as long as you're strategic and you're thoughtful about the people you want to serve and what actually they need and want, then you can have everything that you want from your practice. So yeah, I would just not doubt yourself, be willing to have a go, and I think that's something a lot of practice owners struggle with, just having the courage and the self-belief, and it just comes step by step. And I think if I can do it, anybody can. And I think that's in Optical Success Academy. That's the great thing about the community of practice owners we have, is they all kind of inspire each other and embolden and give people courage to do that. And I think that's really important to get the most out of your practice and your career and feel good about it.
Love it. So be yourself, be authentic, and trust yourself. Be confident about what you can achieve. Thank you, Conor.
You're welcome.
Good. Excellent. Appreciate it. Conor, before we finally wrap up here, where can people find you? Where can they learn more about Optical Success Academy?
Yeah. opticalsuccessacademy.com is our website. And there's a few reports and things I've written that I'm happy to share. And then we have a podcast called The Optical Entrepreneur. So if you search where you get your podcast for The Optical Entrepreneur, you'll find that there. If you want to have a peek at my practice in Manchester, it's called Jones & Co Styling Opticians, but the website is jonesand.co. And yeah, if anybody wants any more information, just reach out to my team. Happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Conor. Really, so much great value in this conversation. We talked beforehand. I usually run about 45 minutes to an hour. We've gone well over the hour mark because it was just so much good stuff. I didn't want to cut it short because I feel like the listener is going to be like, wait a minute, I wanted to, finish that thought. So thank you for sticking with me and sharing so much. I encourage anybody who's listening and watching to go check out the Optical Success Academy and go check out Conor's practice, Jones & Co. Really, I think it's going to help us think differently as business owners and hopefully continue to grow. And I myself will be enrolling in the Optical Success Academy. I'm putting it out there into the public now, Conor. So I got to stick with it. I got to go through with it now. I'm going to be enrolling in OSA, and I want to, go through it for 6 months or a year or however long to kind of really see the impact it makes on our business. And I look forward to reporting back down the road and maybe bringing Conor back on as well to talk about some of the cool stuff that we hopefully will accomplish. So thank you again, Conor, for joining us on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Harvey. Thank you for having me. And I'd love to come back at some point and check in again. So thanks very much for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you to everybody who is tuning in to the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I'll see you guys on the next episode.